Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting truly well-informed, without getting completely buried under that mountain of articles and research.
Yeah, it's tough. There's just so much out there.
Exactly. And you want to cut through all that noise, right?
Right.
Get to the core stuff that genuinely matters.
And that's what we aim for here.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into someone really pivotal, often called the Connector Panaetius of Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
His life story, it really mirrors Stoicism's own journey. From Athens, its birthplace, all the way to its rise in Rome.
It really does. He became this incredible ambassador for the philosophy.
Moving it right into the DNA of this growing empire. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, and our mission today, it's not just about who Panaetius was, but really how he transformed Stoicism.
How he changed it.
Exactly. He took it from being, well, sometimes quite academic, maybe even a bit provincial,
Right.
and he made it into this practical guide for public life, for finding individual purpose.
That ancient wisdom, but applied now. Or, well then.
Precisely. And we'll see how it can still speak to our challenges today. We're drawing on, a bunch of historical accounts, philosophical texts. It's quite a story of influence.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly.
Mm.
So let's rewind. How did this all start? Because Panaetius's introduction to Stoicism, and maybe even Stoicism's first real sniff of Rome, it sounds like it began with a bit of an accident.
It really does. A pretty remarkable one.
Tell us about this Crates of Melis guy.
Right. So the sources tell us way back in 168 BC, that's actually 13 years before the more famous visit by Diogenes.
Okay.
Stoicism got this sort of brief preview in Rome, thanks to Crates of Melis.
And he wasn't even there to teach philosophy, was he?
No, not at all. He was there on a diplomatic mission trying to, look out for his country's interests during the Macedonian Wars.
Okay.
But then disaster strikes. He falls, breaks his leg. Badly, it seems.
Oh, wow. So he's stuck in Rome.
Exactly. Forced to spend months recovering. And what does he do? He starts giving these philosophical talks, these discourses, to small groups of interested Romans.
A broken leg leads to philosophy lectures.
Yeah.
You couldn't make it up.
It's quite something.
So how does young Panaetius get connected to all this?
Well, here's the really interesting bit. Panaetius's own father was apparently in Rome on his own diplomatic mission right around the same time Crates was laid up.
No way. At the same time.
Yeah. Now, we don't know for sure if the father attended Crates' lectures or maybe brought back notes or something. But very soon after, young Panaetius ends up becoming Crates' student back in Pergamum.
So that connection, that diplomatic world his father was in, kind of paved the way.
It seems like it. This future connector gets his intro to philosophy through this really fortunate diplomatic link. It aligns perfectly with his family background and public service.
And it sounds like this wasn't just about abstract ideas for him even early on. He was geared towards public life.
Absolutely. You see him, for instance, around 155 BC, appointed as a sacrificial priest back home in Lindos. That was just the first step.
A public role.
A public role, yes. But he knew he needed more, a deeper intellectual grounding. So eventually, he heads to Athens.
Right, the philosophical center.
Exactly. Gets what you could call his PhD in philosophy, studies under the big names Diogenes the Stoic, and his successor, Antipater.
So serious study.
Very serious. About 5 years of intense study. But
Wow.
then, straight back into the real world, applying everything he learned, but now at the absolute highest levels of power in Rome.
So he really lived that idea. Learn, apply. Learn, apply.
That's it, exactly. It's the core Stoic way, isn't it? And it guided him his whole life.
It's not just theory in a book.
Not at all. It's got to be tested. Think of an entrepreneur today. You can study business all you want, but you have to actually build the company, right?
Yeah, test it in the real world. Iterate.
Precisely. Constantly testing, iterating, adapting. That's the real insight for any challenge, ancient or modern.
And this practical application led him into some incredibly powerful circles in Rome. How did he make those connections? Especially with someone like Scipio Aemilianus. It was a big deal.
A huge deal. It seems to have started back in Athens, actually. While studying there, Panaetius met Gaius Laelius, another student of Diogenes.
Okay.
And it was through Laelius, and then later, maybe via some naval connection, that Panaetius meets and starts serving with Scipio Aemilianus.
The great general.
The great general, adopted into one of Rome's most powerful families, and crucially, someone known to really admire Greek culture and thought.
So Scipio was open to these ideas already.
Very much so. And that meeting, that connection was the real turning point for Panaetius.
And these guys, back in Rome, they formed this group, the Scipionic Circle. Sounds like more than just friends chatting over wine.
Oh, much more. It was basically a philosophical club. They met in Scipio's reportedly enormous houses, discussing, debating Stoic ideas.
Who hosted?
Scipio apparently footed the bill, as the sources put it, while Panaetius provided the intellectual nourishment.
Nice division of labor.
Agrees. And it wasn't just casual. This circle became a real incubator, a breeding ground for influential Stoics and really a whole generation of Roman leaders.
Like who?
Well, figures like Publius Rutilius Rufus, who became a consul, and the historian Polybius was often there too.
Wow. That sounds like, I don't know, the Algonquin Round Table or something, but for Roman politics and philosophy?
That's a great analogy. Or maybe, like that early PayPal group that spawned so many tech leaders, Thiel, Musk, Hoffman. It had that kind of concentrated influence.
That level of access for a philosopher, it seems incredible. What was it about Scipio that made him so receptive? And did this change how Romans saw Stoicism?
Yeah, it's a key point. Scipio wasn't just a military man, he was genuinely intellectual. He valued Greek thought in a way that was maybe just starting to become more common among the Roman elite, but he was ahead of the curve.
So he saw the value.
He really did. And this gave Panaetius influence his own father or even his teachers like Diogenes could probably never have dreamed of.
Right.
As Scipio's power grew, Panaetius became his. Well, his translator, his advisor, his confidant. He was right there shaping policy, influencing decisions, affecting millions.
Directly involved in governance.
Directly. Plutarch even mentions how Polybius and Panaetius, because Scipio liked them, managed to get benefits for their home cities.
Wow.
This was exactly what Panaetius had trained for making philosophy matter in the real world, in the corridors of power.
And that really marks a huge shift for Stoicism itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From something potentially seen as a bit, well, Greek and maybe academic.
Yeah, maybe a bit provincial, as some have put it.
Right, to something actively shaping a global empire.
Absolutely. You look at the earlier Stoics, Zeno apparently really clung to his hometown. Cleanthes lived very frugally, didn't travel much. Diogenes went back to Athens pretty quickly after his mission.
Not exactly global outlooks.
Not really suited for an empire spanning the Mediterranean, but Panaetius, he was different. He was, you could say, a born globalist.
He traveled a lot.
All over, across most of the Mediterranean world. And he managed these complex connections, political, personal, in a way that feels surprisingly modern.
Setting the stage for later ideas.
Yeah, like Marcus Aurelius' whole citizen of the world concept. Panaetius really set that course.
But he stayed connected to Rhodes.
He did. Interestingly, he apparently turned down Athenian citizenship when offered, said something like, one city was enough for a sensible man.
Huh. So a global perspective, but still grounded. That's a fascinating balance.
It really is.
So, okay, he's in Scipio's inner circle.
Yeah.
What was his role like? Was he just agreeing with the powerful general? Or did he push back?
That's the interesting thing. The sources suggest he acted as a moderating influence, balancing Scipio's, natural ambition
With principles.
Exactly, with mildness and principles, as one account puts it. But crucially, without being seen as like a wet blanket. He wasn't there to kill the ambition, but to channel it ethically.
Scipio clearly valued that.
Immensely, so much so that in 140 BC, Scipio asks Panaetius to join him on this major diplomatic tour, this fact-finding mission to the east.
Fact-finding. What were they looking for?
It lasted almost 2 years. They went everywhere. Egypt, Cyprus, Syria, Rhodes. The official purpose sent by the Senate was apparently to view the violence and lawlessness of men.
Wow, what a mandate. Go look at the chaos.
Quite the trip. And speaking of trips, Plutarch tells a pretty funny story from that journey, doesn't he?
Yes, the one in Alexandria with the king.
That's the one from his Moralia. They arrive in Alexandria, and the Egyptian king, Ptolemy VIII, nicknamed the Fat, apparently.
Chuckles slightly.
He was so well out of shape and pampered that he could barely keep up with Scipio and Panaetius as they walked around.
Hard to picture.
So Scipio, apparently quite the wit, leans over and whispers to Panaetius just loud enough, presumably. Already the Alexandrians have received some benefit from our visit.
Uh-oh, what's the punchline?
For it is owing to us that they have seen their king walk.
Chuckles, ouch. That's sharp.
A bit cutting, yeah. But maybe a timeless observation about, certain kinds of leaders.
Perhaps. So, after this grand tour, observing violence and lawlessness, what happens when they get back to Rome?
Well, Panaetius returns in 138 BC. He's about 47 now, packed with all this experience, And he turns more towards writing.
Putting it all down.
Exactly. This is when he writes his most important book concerning appropriate actions. It's essentially this long meditation on ethical behavior, specifically in public life.
It wasn't just theory, right?
Yeah.
It connected to what was actually happening.
Directly. I mean, around this time, Scipio starts prosecuting these big corruption cases, and then there's the whole huge crisis around the Gracchus brothers, the Gracchus affair.
Land reform, popular unrest,
Mm.
a massive deal.
A massive deal. And what's fascinating is you essentially have Stoics on opposite sides of this.
Really? How so?
Well, you have Panaetius advising Scipio, generally seen as representing the, let's call it the Stoic conservative view, emphasizing order, stability, tradition.
Yeah, okay.
But on the other side, advising Tiberius Gracchus is Blasius of Cumae, also a Stoic, actually a student of Panaetius' own teacher, Antipater. And Blasius is seen as the Stoic revolutionary, encouraging Gracchus' push for land distribution to the poor.
So the same philosophy leads to completely opposing political actions.
Okay.
That's politics, I guess.
It really is. And it shows something important. It wasn't weird that Stoics ended up on different sides. It was almost a natural outgrowth, you could say, of Stoicism getting so deeply tangled up with the political world.
The philosophy itself was flexible enough, or maybe ambiguous enough, to be used for different ends?
Perhaps flexible is the right word. It wasn't static. It was being interpreted, applied to these really pressing, messy, real-world problems, which made it influential for sure, but also meant it could be pulled in different directions.
Okay, so despite maybe fueling some political fires, Panaetius' big book concerning appropriate actions, it had a huge legacy.
Huge, even though he apparently never finished it.
Really?
Yeah. But even unfinished, Cicero later called it unquestionably the most thorough discussion of moral duties that we have. High praise.
Very high praise. What was the core idea in it that was so important?
I think the central, really groundbreaking idea was his concept of prosopon.
Prosopon. Greek word. What does it mean?
Yeah, Greek. It roughly translates to character, but maybe more accurately, role, or even mask, like an actor wears.
Okay.
Panaetius argued that every single one of us has a unique role, or maybe multiple roles to play in life. And the key is to fulfill that role with honor, courage, commitment, no matter what that role is.
So it's not just about universal rules, but about my specific situation.
Exactly. That was the innovation. Moving beyond just abstract duties that apply to everyone and really digging into the specific individual circumstances, relationships, talents that shape your moral obligations.
That sounds incredibly relevant today. We all wear different hats, juggle different responsibilities.
It feels very modern, doesn't it? He actually laid out this kind of formula. To live ethically, to choose the right actions, you need to balance 4 kinds of roles or duty.
4 kinds. Okay, what are they?
First, the duties we have just as human beings, common to everyone. Second, the duties tied to our unique individual nature, our daemon, you might call it, our personal genius or calling.
Our potential.
Sort of, yeah. Third, the duties that come from our place in society, our family roles, our job or profession.
Makes sense.
And fourth, the duties that arise from the choices and commitments we've made, things we've promised, decisions we've taken.
Okay, so it's a mix of universal, personal, social, and chosen obligations.
Precisely. Think about a soldier, for instance. They have duties as a human, duties related to their specific skills as a warrior, duties perhaps as a parent or sibling, and duties based on the oath they took.
That's a complex web.
It is. And Panaetius' point was that the specifics change, whether you're a head of state or, a beggar on the street, but that complicated balance and the need for wisdom and guidance to navigate it. That's the same for everyone. It really calls for self-awareness.
So when we call him the connector, it's deeper than just networking.
Much deeper. Yes, he knew everyone, connected people. But the real connection was between these timeless philosophical principles and actual people living actual lives.
Helping them answer those huge questions.
Exactly. Who am I? What am I supposed to do? How do I make my life meaningful? He provided a framework for that.
And he believed everyone had potential for leadership.
Yeah, an inborn desire for leadership, he apparently called it, and an obligation to fulfill that potential. This connects to another idea, aphormai.
Aphormai. What's that?
Our sort of inborn resources, our starting points, our natural capacities. His view is that we really thrive, we live well, when we live consistently with our nature, fulfilling our duties, making the most of what we've been given.
Using our talents.
Using our talents or resources purposefully. Panaetius himself, he came from privilege, he could have had an easy life, but he chose duty. He leveraged his resources for these bigger projects, and he argued we all have that obligation. at our own scale.
Recognize your strengths and use them. That's powerful.
Very.
And for dealing with the tough stuff, the challenges life throws at us, he gave us a really vivid metaphor, right? The sports one.
He did. One of the most powerful in Stoicism, I think, the Pancratist.
The Greek boxer.
Yeah.
Or more like MMA fighter.
Yeah, kind of an ancient MMA fighter. Pancration was brutal. And Aulus Gellius describes how these fighters would stand, arms up, ready, stretched out, prepared to block or deliver blows.
Okay, I can picture that.
Panaetius said the wise person's mind should be just like that. Alert, ready, strongly protected, prepared in time of trouble, never flagging in attention.
Always ready.
Always ready. It's different from some other Stoic metaphors, like the archer aiming carefully or the javelin thrower making one perfect shot.
How so?
Panaetius saw life less as target practice and more as actual combat. You know the blows are coming. You have to be constantly prepared, mentally resilient, ready to take hits and keep going.
That's intense, but probably realistic.
I think so. And it was such a striking metaphor that it pops up later, uncredited in both Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. They clearly saw its power too.
Wow. So beyond these core philosophical ideas, did he also change how Stoicism was, presented? Did he make it easier to understand?
Yeah, definitely. There are a couple of things there. Cicero tells us Panaetius made this rather practical, maybe even controversial, legal argument.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He apparently argues that a good lawyer could ethically defend a client they knew was guilty, as long as the person wasn't, egregiously depraved.
Mm-hmm. Was pragmatic.
Very pragmatic, a kind of practical innovation that, you could argue, became a cornerstone of legal systems, the idea of the right to a defense.
Interesting. And his writing style.
He wrote in a much simpler, more direct style than some earlier Stoics. He helped, as one later writer put it, rid the philosophy of arcane terminology and its unappealing style.
Cut through the jargon.
Exactly. Made it more practical and accessible, mellower, more lucid. He smoothed the edges, making it more appealing, especially to a Roman audience that valued practicality.
So people saw him less as this abstract philosopher and more as...
Yeah.
One.
More like great man. Someone wise, yes, but grounded in reality. And this comes through in another key shift he made.
What's that?
He was apparently the first major Stoic to challenge the old idea that virtue alone is enough for happiness.
Oh, really? That's a big Stoic tenet.
It is. Zeno, Cleanthes, they insisted on it. But Panaetius argued, no, you also need other things. Strength, health, and material resources are also needed, he supposedly said.
So practical realities matter too. Health, enough money.
Exactly. He understood that philosophy doesn't happen in a vacuum, in a silo. It's all interconnected with these other important parts of life. Living well means balancing all of it. It's more holistic, maybe more realistic.
That makes a lot of sense. So after all these years influencing Rome at the highest level, what came next for Panaetius? Did he stay there?
Well, a major event happened in 129 BC. Scipio died.
Ah, his great friend and patron. That must have been devastating.
A huge loss, undoubtedly. And you have to imagine Panaetius drawing on his own Stoic teachings then. Reminding himself, I knew he was mortal when he came into my life. That preparation for life's blows.
Using the philosophy in his own grief.
Exactly. Philosophy is meant to prepare us. So after Scipio's death, and also around the time his own teacher Antipater passed away, Panaetius made a move.
Back to Athens?
And back to Athens. He became the head of the Stoic school there, led it for another 20 years, teaching, writing, maybe still making occasional trips back to Rome. We don't know for sure.
Wow, 20 more years leading the school. So his influence continued.
Absolutely. And really, it's through his life's work, that connection he forged between Stoic ideas and Roman power, Roman life, that Stoicism really embedded itself. It thrived in Roman political life for the next 300 years.
And he managed that transition.
He did. From the agora in Athens, which could feel a bit provincial, onto the world stage of Rome. A remarkable achievement.
Truly the connector.
The ultimate connector, bridging theory and practice, East and West, timeless principles, and real people's lives. Making philosophy a practical guide for leaders, but also for anyone trying to live a meaningful life.
Balancing those universal duties with our unique calling, our prosopon, and our social roles, and being ready, like that Pancratist, for whatever comes.
That's the legacy.
So as you're listening, here's something to think about. What does it mean for you right now to really understand your prosopon, your unique character, your roles? And how can you proactively prepare, like that Pancratist, for the inevitable blows of modern life? How can you leverage your aphromai, your own resources and strengths, to make a meaningful contribution in your world?